up here, my tribe. So it's a great segue into you, Foster. I talk about family a lot, right? And I talk about my son. And so often we hear family being mom and dad, right? And so, Foster, we've had many conversations, and I would love if you can share, what family means to today for you and how you identify that and what that means to you.
Thank you. I'm pretty much a textbook study in what not to do for your kid. I'll just put that out there right now. My parents watched me or ignored me hitting bottom and sort of skidding there for years. I used in their home, I used under their noses, I lied about my use, and they looked the other way. I had a near fatal opioid overdose in their home. My heart stopped. And when I came to, by the way, there was no intervention, there was no ambulance, there was nothing. When I came to after this overdose, I was barely 18. I begged for help. I went to my parents and I begged for help. I said, please, I need treatment. I cannot stop on my own. I'm so scared of using again. I don't have the willpower to do this. And they told me to pull myself together and get on with my life. And, as an 18-year-old, you're legally an adult, but technically a child. Some of us stay children longer than others. And I was devastated. I didn't know what to do. So I tried doing what they wanted me to do and ended up, drinking and using for about another 7 years. It was like being held hostage by my addiction. I was so ashamed and so mortified that the people who I thought I could trust with my life, my own mother and father, turned them get sober because of them. I got sober in spite of them. And so it was such a relief to come to recovery and meet moms and dads and parents who loved their children to this degree. I mean, I would have done anything to have a mom like you. And it just means so much to be able to talk to parents who really do put the work in. I didn't know how to love a child of God, a child in recovery, to be a parent to a child. I didn't know how to do that until I came into the rooms of recovery. I was telling my friend yesterday that recovery is a family of choice. And my family of choice is not only the LGBTQ people who I consider part of my closest, my heart family, but also the moms family, but also the moms and dads who really lead the way and bring an example and give comfort to one another as you get through this. My moms and dads are in these rooms. Denise is one of my moms. I've got these extra moms who I can call up. When I transitioned, also, I was disowned. So I really have had to fall back on my family of choice. And, it's the people who love you and show up for you who are your real family.
Thank you, Foster. I just want to briefly say, since Foster's been in my life, I've learned a new definition of family, right? Because I could only see within my own circle and the struggles we were going through. And he's taught me so much that now we at the partnership are able to help more people like Foster. And we're really developing new materials for LGBT and having online support groups, right? And because we have to look outside what we look at as a normal family today. And I'm so appreciative of everything I've learned from him. So Diana, we came to Mobilize together last year virtually. And it felt a little scary, right? Because families weren't really part of Mobilize. So I'm wondering if you can share what that experience felt like last year and how that experience informed both your life and your work today.
Can I go back just a little bit before that?
Sure.
So I'm used to being the elephant in the room for 14 years now. It's not lost on me that I represent every parent's worst nightmare. And I'm okay with that because there's teaching that happens in those moments. And so I felt from the very beginning that I needed to give my sons a voice for what was wrong. At the time, I didn't really know as much as I do now and failed us. But I was moved in the very beginning by love, and I still am today. And that's because I needed to find a place to love them first, because I just could not let that go. So originally, I was looking for community, and I began working with the Compassionate Friends. And so for 8 years, I've been presenting workshops, and every year there's a room like this filled with parents who have just experienced a loss the very first time, and they're reaching out to find someone who they can talk to who has walked in their shoes. I found healing in that role, and so that's my background with trying to work through my grief. But then last year, I was turned on to Mobilize Recovery, and I was accepted, and so I didn't know what to expect. First of all, I came away from it feeling just so grateful for Mobilize, and that they would embrace families, bereaved families, and now families in recovery as having a really important role in the development of a public narrative for good. And I already sort of felt that in my bones, but boy, last year it just all came alive. And what really spoke to me was the partnership. And I felt like I had found my people, I had found my home, and a place where I could do really good work for families and work for the living and offering them hope. I'm not going to abandon the people that I work with who are bereaved, of course, but I really found meaning in the partnership and the training to become a parent peer coach, because I have experience being in that role for people who are looking for community and people who have walked in their shoes. And I can tell you that you don't have to have credentials to do either work. It's really, really important. It's healing for the people that you work with, and it's healing for your own heart. So it's profound.
Thank you, Diana. I just want to piggyback on Diana attending Mobilize. 3 months, 4 months before Mobilize, when Ryan Hampton and Garrett said, "What do you think about having a family track at Mobilize?" Just that question alone meant the world to us families. You know, for so long, we wanted to be part of your recovery community. And we knew we could make a difference, right? We're so lockstep on our advocacy work, but we knew we could bring our heart in our journey. And so when I left that Mobilize conference, my call to action on the last virtual breakout session that we got through was, please continue us as we leave this conference to embrace families. We want to know your journeys and how we can help you. And I think the families have really helped the public narrative for the recovery community, right? We don't use the words for so long. And my call to action was, maybe you can help us develop, right, that family narrative, right? Maybe we don't have to call families enablers and codependents. And so we're going to reach out to you this year for that help. But such an honor to be part of that conference. And what happened from there was, we got so many wonderful Dianas, right, that came to the partnership. But we also had so many families reach out to Ryan and Garrett and say, you know what, we want to be involved on your state rap teams. We want to be a part of this toolkit. And which was great. And we had discussions about family caucuses, and we did webinars together this year, right? The recovery and the families together. So I'm so grateful to them. That was the beginning of a dream that's coming true now, and including families. So for everybody in recovery here, thank you for accepting us and as part of your family. And we're never going away. We'll be back next year too. So Anna and training. And she talked about her recovery and her work, and I wasn't quite sure where Anna wanted to go with the family part of it, right? So maybe we talk about the challenges and maybe the positive changes that you're seeing in families with the recovery housing. Maybe you want to share personal, Anna. I'm always so grateful for anything you want to share. And yeah, so I'm going to leave that to you.
Thank you so much. Ah, yeah, where do I go with that? Because family is what really makes this thing happen when it comes to recovery. And I truly feel like we're not connecting the dots in recovery if family is not involved, right? Family has to be involved on every level. And that's been one of my missions this year, as I've been participating in our area of Washington, D.C., is that family needs to be at the table. I know in recovery, we say nothing for us without us, and I feel that same way when it comes to family. And I can say, as a family member of a brother who overdosed, and there was no Narcan to save his life, right? You know, and having to realize that my mother had to find him, and she knew nothing about what could save its life, right? So, and then as another family member, as a brother who deals with mental health issues, just being there to help with that, right? And I only know that because of recovery, right? Showing up and wanting to be a part of the solution and not the problem. And I know that family is the solution. You know, you have to be at the table. And a lot of times we're not connecting the dot on that. We're just totally forgetting about that. And we consider it like the holistic approach, like everything needs to be, and that big buzzword everybody's talking about, recovery capital, right? So that just, it truly needs to happen. As a woman in recovery, an African-American woman in recovery, let me get that there, right? Because this family is looked at a little differently and handled differently. I can say in the beginning when I was struggling a lot, family was there, but in the end, it was like, you're gonna have to do this thing. And all I really wanted to do was make my mother happy, right? And I can remember coming, when I truly surrendered in 1999, coming into treatment, and because my mother still indulged, them telling me, you can't go see your mother, right? And that was my whole thing. Okay, this time I'm ready, Mom, right? And hearing that. And I don't want anybody to ever have to go through that, because I remember that moment. And I remember them telling me, that's not, because you're going to go back. If you go back to that area, you're going to use again. You're not going to remember sneaking to see, you know, my mom, because I needed her. I needed to see her in that process. So it's needed. And that's why I say multiple pathways, because it doesn't have to be that way anymore. Thank goodness, you know, that was 22 years ago. And I can say truly that as a daughter, I got to recover with my mom, right? And just be there with her. She's not here anymore. And I say that because she was there for me the whole time in that process. And I want to share this about the family, right? Because mom had 8 children. I'm the 7th, right? And so a lot of different personalities, 6 girls, 2 boys, right? So a lot of different personalities. But the sister who stepped up for me, we're talking family, because there were so many times my mother would go through her to try to get through me. And I share this because there were so many times when they were looking for me, you know, family, they're always there, and family is struggling. Even when we get, you know, when I got to the point and I was like, look, I got it together now, Mom. They still don't know if I'm going to make it or not. So they're still struggling because they haven't got the help, right? We're not connecting the dots because the family is still like, oh my God, I just hope she makes it. She's doing good this time. So we have to remember that and connect the dots on that part. And then one more thing about that I want to share about my sister as far as family, right? And how I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for this sister. She told me this my first year. She shared my anniversary and she said, I'm so thankful because she was the one where it was like, Mom would call her and say, hey, check the morgues for Anna, you know? She was getting that. So that energy was coming into her too. And my mother, she had got so tired, she said she had just wrote an obituary for me because one day my mother was going to call her, right? And she just wanted to have it ready. So I never knew that until I got into recovery. You know, thank God I'm here today to say that she is that sister that has been here for me through my ups and my downs, has been there for me. My time getting, second time around getting married, just that support we needed, right? I mean, I have that today, and I have family who are still out there, but knowing that we're people in recovery, we can be there for the family, right? As an African-American woman, you know, family, the stigma, the, you know, everything that happens in the house stays in the house. So bringing that to light as a family member, right? And as a woman in recovery has been so powerful for me. And to be the one to say, hey, it stops here, right? So I'm freeing my ancestors. I'm being real about what's happening to me, not keeping any secrets. And that's just part of my family story. And it's been a blessing for me. And I continue to do it with nieces, nephews, my daughter, my grandkids, because it has to stop. You know, that cycle has to stop. And the dots need to be connected. Yeah. So thank you, Denise.
Thank you, Anna. You know, I'm a short sentence. I look around the room and I especially look at my family up here. And so sometimes I think, and especially I realized the last 24 hours that, yeah, we're advocates and this is a recovery movement, but those of us in recovery and families can certainly support each other, like Anna just said. And I was able to experience that in the last 24 hours, right? I thought that my only path, which I've chosen and so blessed to choose, was to help families and to have the recovery community embrace us and work together. But what I realized yesterday was that I could be a mom for somebody in recovery here at this conference and be that mom she never had. And so I just, listening to Anna and everybody up here, I think we are a whole extended family. So let's not forget when we leave this conference, it's not just about advocacy, it's about our hearts and really supporting each other too. So I just wanted to share that. So the last question for all of us, right? We have the room full, because we do want to make time for Q&A, is how we ended it last year. You have an audience here and virtually. What would be your call to action for the recovery community and the families? Or maybe it's just your own personal call to action. I'd love to hear from each of you on that.
That's such a great question, Denise. Thank you. Let me stall for time while I think of one. I mean, I've often suggested to folks, you know, especially meeting so many incredible parents at Mobilize, like if you have lost a child, if you are struggling to take care of your child, you know, there are people out there, you know, like me who have been rejected by their families or who are struggling in community. Get an extra kid. Get an extra kid. I can't tell you how powerful it is. I mean, we talk about advocacy at the policy level. We talk about advocacy, you know, at the state level, at the federal level, but advocacy can be as simple as saying, hey, I'm going to go to your doctor appointment with you. Hey, I'm going to take you to treatment. Those of us who have worked in that space know how hard it is to say no to an angry mom. You know, and I think that for those of us who are kind of on our own or who are working with a more fluid community, I think it's really, really important to know that you have a mom or dad that you can call who knows what to do. You know, whether it's helping somebody figure out their budget for the month or, you know, figuring out, hey, mom, what do I put on my resume? Hey, mom, what do I tell this nurse? You know, parents have these wonderful resources that they can share. And if you're looking for places to share that, there are people who are eager to use your information. I also wanted to add that in addition to this, I think it's really important. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. I'm like, yeah, you guys have all heard this before, but there are a lot of parents who deal with complex, children with complex medical issues like sickle cell anemia, mental health issues like bipolar disorder. I think that taking into consideration your child's gender and sexuality and the way that they choose to live their lives is just as important. Parents become excellent advocates for their children when they are open-minded and when they can prove to their children over and over again, hey, I'm a safe place to be. Home is safe for you no matter who you are. And it has to go beyond tolerance. It has to go into that zone of unconditional love, because that's where you're going to save lives.
Thank you, Foster. It's Diana.
So on my refrigerator, I have a Scrabble sign that I made, and it's sort of been one of my mantras for the boys, and that I truly feel it to my core that their best was good enough. I've never been angry with them. I have been angry at the system that failed. I have been angry at the things that we didn't know because we just didn't know what we didn't know. So that led me to advocacy, and in whatever small way that I can participate. I've been an ambassador for Shatterproof since the very beginning, 2012. I have a new home with partnership, which is like such a gift to be able to talk with parents who are in the throes of trying to help their loved one get through that day, that week, with the new tools that I have learned, which I'm just ecstatic about, because they're simple tools. And yet when you are in that space where you are terrified and if fear just takes over, you're not in the headspace to do the things that would totally coincide with your ordinary parenting style, right? So being a peer parent coach with a partnership allows me to have parents step back and re-examine some of these very simple concepts, and they're all, oh yeah, that's right. And I'm thinking, and I sometimes say, yes. And I wish I had had someone to remind me of the simplicity, because we are their tribe. We're the ones that they come to for everything. And so you just got to stick it out. You got to be there with all the love communications that you have. So I'm going to continue to do that. And I have my own little campaign to integrate bereaved parents with families in recovery, to stamp out shame and secrecy. That's what the boxing gloves are. For years, I've been giving one to parents, bereaved parents, to acknowledge the fight and the challenge of their lost loved one. They did love you. They were trying to please you. And so I think the same thing is true now, that the power of recovery, parents who are in the throes of trying to help their child, they need to be reminded of that as well.
Thank you, Diana. Anna?
Oh, thank you. Just listening to, to Diana and Foster. I feel that. So, and I think about my mother, right? God bless her soul. I'm just so thankful I was there to be there as her daughter. And she got to see me, she didn't have to worry as much as she did. But I think, what was there for her when I was out there? What help did she have, right? And it wasn't a lot. It wasn't a lot for her. And as a resource coordinator, she didn't know what to do, just send her to treatment. It wasn't like a lot of things there for her to get help for her daughter, right? And this time you just did 28 days. Maybe you need to do a 90-day. It's just so many things and trying to save me because that cycle was constant for me. And today as a resource coordinator, I have to get resources. So I'm there when I get the call, right? Because I was getting calls. I can remember working in the field, always getting calls. Well, what do I do? What do they need? And it's like, because, back in the day, it's like, what you don't want to enable. But today it's like, it's okay that I understand it today, right? And I have to have those resources today for the parent, for the daughter, for the mom, so that they can get what they need. And I think a lot of those things are happening. I can say that I see The resources are there. You know, Denise, your organization is doing such awesome things when it comes to getting things done and being there for the parent or just to help them. And we need that. You know, that hasn't been around. So for me, it's more resources. It's truly connecting to the point of where it's a one-on-one thing because one way doesn't fit everybody. So you have to have, again, some options out there, right, for everybody. And I'm loving that and bringing in new modalities to it to get really creative. I love the campaign. That's so exciting. Again, wishing that was there for me. That stigma thing is major. So I think more stigma when it comes to the family would help. Because there's a lot of that out there, what you do, or I'm not going to tell you that my daughter's using. Oh, no, no, no. I mean, all of those things are still out there, which keeps us sick and doesn't help us grow. Again, so bringing out the truth like we're doing it now, I think will help. And I can't stress enough, I just say connecting the dots, you know, having everybody at the table, right? So that's my feeling on it. Thank you, Denise.
Thanks, Anna. I think I probably did a couple call to actions today. So I'm looking at some of my fellow coaches from our program yesterday. I see T out there and I see Patty out there. And at the partnership, we know how important it is to share your stories. I knew that coming in and I knew that why we were being trained. But also it became so apparent yesterday and continues to be as we walk through the halls today, like people sharing their stories. And so rather than do a call to action, I'm just going to do a plug and ask you to help us. And so when you came through the door, we had some postcards. We want you to share your stories with us. And for a few reasons, right? For those families that just want to have, you know, step up, have that courage to share their story for the first time. Those are our new advocates in the future, and they get the support that they need. And also, when we come to that landing pages, we have so many families that come there and they look at the different stories, right? And they look and say, wow, that's me, and that's me again. And some of it paints a really broken system of care, right? So when I think about, you know, my family, no insurance, right, for 4 years, no supports, I had to come back for probation. And then, you know, I could go on and on of the different touch points. Our families are seeing the same stories and they're inspired and empowered to want to work together and advocate. And then for other families, it just gives them hope because there's some really good stories of recovery there that regardless of this broken system, we get to travel, their son and daughters are in recovery. And finally, we take that broken system and we have broken it down into different touch points, right? And really sad that there's over 53 touch points where the system has failed us. And there's tons of legislation that we match that story up to now as well. So just, I know we asked you to grab the postcard and I hope you can share your story with us. And I know some of you, I will stalk you if you don't. So thank you. I think we only have about maybe 13, 14 minutes. We'd love if you have any questions for the panelists. That's great. So we thought we'd have an extra mic. If you could just stand up and ask your question, and then I'll try to repeat it up here for our virtual audience.
Sure. So it's not a question, it's just something quick. Everything you guys have said is amazing. And I have something to add to this topic. This is, when I approach the issue of addiction and recovery, it's truly a family unit. Because not only do we have the parents, and they're losing their children, but we have the children who grow up in homes surrounded by addiction, who lose their parents, who find their parents dead, who end up on their own, who are not in recovery themselves, but they will live the rest of their lives. They will go on to go to college and get married or have children, and they will not have their mother or their father. And so it is so important, I think, we all bring different perspectives and different experiences to the table as family members. And I think it is just so important to really share our stories and listen to each other's stories and come together as each part of the family unit, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to make the change that we need to see. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. I would love after this if I could get your name, because obviously between my age and just saying, how do I repeat that question? It was just so powerful, really hard for me to do. And maybe we can exchange our information and let's talk about that, because I would love to bring that into the work that we're doing, because we also know that many of our families that are struggling have family, their moms, dads, grandparents, and uncles struggle too. And so I appreciate that. Thank you. So, thank you. If you could just please step up just a little bit so I can hear you better, and then I could tell the virtual. Thank you so much. I don't think we're allowed to.
And I have kind of a connection with all of you. I've done the craft training for partnership for interdiction. You know, hopefully you'll share a little bit about that training, that I've had. Anna is a coordinator of the Oxford House that I have in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
Women's Oxford House in Southeast D.C. One of the first women's Oxford House in Southeast D.C.
Yes.
It's been an Oxford House for 11 years, so she helps me manage that. Jeffrey and I collaborated on an article that we wrote. Treatment is like triage, not a cure for addiction. So thank you, Jeffrey, for that. And I've also served. So I understand, how I was 17 years into my recovery. 18. And so, my recovery, what I've learned from that experience is that my recovery, no matter how great I thought it was at the time, still is not enough to save someone else. Right. I'm so connected to you ladies. I came here for Anna, and then I found all of you. So, when I asked you to share a little bit about the craft, so that people can find a little bit about that, I was like,
I know we have a virtual audience out there. Thank you so much for sharing with us. So we just had an amazing attendee come up and share some of the work that he's doing, but he just noticed that he works with all four of us in one way and had no idea that he knew us individually. And he asked me to briefly, and I can answer questions after, to talk about our model for our peer coaching. And much of it is based in craft, right? And MI as well. And so craft is community family reinforcement training. And if you remember when we spoke before and I shared my phase one of like, there's nothing you can do, let them hit rock bottom and you're part of the problem. What we've done is taken craft and we created our invitation to change model to reverse it, because we know that families can be part of the solution. So what that is a toolbox for families, right? Instead of, kicking them down, we lift them up. Our love matters. We teach them communication skills, right? So that there's not that instant conflict. So parents learn about red lights and green lights, right? Maybe their loved one walking through the door under the influence, probably not a right time to have a conversation. So paying attention to the lights. And for us as family members to also take responsibility of our own tone, right? Instead of saying, did you go to the meeting? We might say, how was your meeting tonight? Is it something you might want to share with us? So just really developing skills so that the conflict ends. And we know that positive reinforcement matters. We kick them down so often. And maybe that's something, I'll just say this as an example. I remember when our son relapsed for the 12th time, he called us up and he told us, and he's like, Mom and Dad, I hit another bump in the road. And we said, you know what? We're really proud of you. And he said, I don't think you understood what I just said. And I said, we understood you. You came to us. You called us up. We didn't have to find out from someone else, right? that meant the world to us because now we're communicating, we're learning how to communicate. I can give you so many examples of the tools that we have, but thank you for bringing that up. I got to plug it. It works, it's saving lives. And anybody has any questions, I have my cards and so forth as well. And Pam, who we also, she's raising her hand, but we trained her in the invitation to change model. And now she is in her own community expanding it, right? It's not just the partnership doing this. We want to train people. We want to expand the footprint. It's not just like our own proprietary. It's working, it's saving lives. And just one more thing for families that have lost, I would say over 200 of our coaches have lost their family members. And they came to the coaching program and think, I'm not worthy enough to take this program, right? And now we hear back from them that has been so healing for them, right? They should have had these options. They should have known about these options. And so, yes, as Diana said, we're so many in this room are grieving their families every day, but I'm no longer carrying that, for some families, that guilt and that shame, because we should have had these options. We should know about them. There are other options. So, Pam, this is probably, you have a question. I see you waving. It came up. Yeah. 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 Mhm, mhm. Thanks, Pam. So for the virtual audience, and we did hit upon this a little bit, now that we're coming together as a community, the recovery and family community, and I think we've been really helpful in changing the narrative in the recovery. And we need your help now, right? I think before the examples that I gave where we're not just enablers and codependents, we're people and on this journey, and Pam just reinforced that. So thank you, Pam. And we're going to make sure they help us for sure. Right here? Yeah, thank you.
They haven't done crack and heroin like I did. So they're smoking marijuana. I don't know how to talk to my children about their marijuana use. That's a previous drug user. And it's not about being their friend and not their parent. If I need something done, if I need their respect, if I need to institute some correction, I have no problem with that. But I don't know how to talk to them about their marijuana use.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing your journey with us too. So I promise I didn't come here to plug all the good stuff we have, but we just do. And so we have a marijuana talk kit for families that I know you'll find really helpful. And you can grab our cards or give me your card and I will definitely follow up because it's really an important conversation and really built upon some of the craft skills that I just talked about, right? So it doesn't come necessarily from an authoritative position, but a kind, position so that they come back for a second conversation. So we could definitely share that with you. Lots of hands. Are we okay to keep on going? We have 3 minutes, so I'm going to make Anna pick the hand. No, I was just saying, like, I think we just go like this. So I'm just maybe right here on the right side. Hi.
So the question the woman that just brought up about marijuana, it's so huge, so huge. The acceptance of cannabis. I live in the Bay Area, every other building. So I feel their culture of normalizing marijuana is they're normalizing and the stigmatization of addiction. And until we look at big pharma, culture, social media, I don't know how we're gonna help.
I thank you for that and sharing that with the audience. I do. Thank you. Oh. Okay, if you could maybe step up a little bit so we can hear you. Thank you. I have lots of ideas in 1 minute. I think the first one is that you take our business cards and listen, everything we do for families is free. And that means to your community too. We do countless webinars to recovery high schools. We can do a webinar for you. We're here to help you do that. So let's connect and we'll take those next steps and talk about what that looks like. So thank you. Can I have one more question? Because she's been raising her hand and I feel terrible. So thank you.
This touched so many places in my head, but the one that I wanted to bring up that we haven't talked about that I think is a nice connection to all of this is recovery-friendly workplace. Because we think about the individual struggling with addiction and needing recovery, but I worked for the largest healthcare company in the world and lost my job when I moved across the country with a global role, stellar performance for over 4 years. And I lost my job because I lost my mind a year after my son found his recovery. It took that long for the trauma to catch up with me, and I fell apart out of nowhere. So I just wanted to remind us all that we need to care for the families, not even just when they're going through the trauma, but when it does, when they find time to start that process.
It's really important, just not the recovery workplace, but we've had conversations, many of us in the room, just walking the halls about this, but also the difference between an individual's recovery and a family in recovery. I mentioned my son's 7 years in recovery. I'm still in recovery. I will hear a phone ring and my heart will stop. My son, when visiting, could be in the bathroom for a long time and my heart stops. And so I get you, and we hear this all the time. And so I thank you for bringing that. And it's just, we're still working on ourselves too. So thank you for bringing that up. So I think that's it for us. I'll stay in the back. I just want to thank Foster, Diana, and Anna. I appreciate you. We appreciate you. And I thank you for being part of this conversation. And thank you to everybody here. We're doing another breakout on advocacy now from the partnership, but so appreciate you.